Welcome to the Playbook presented by the Leaders Lab. I'm Ken Eslick, and if you're a leader or founder who wants to hire top talent, scale your business, and sell for more, you're in the right place. Each week, Annika Kwacha and I bring you practical, actionable advice that you can put to work immediately to make an impact in your business today. And now, here's this week's episode. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, we are looking under the hood of the most complex machine in the known universe, the human brain. If you've ever felt like you're fighting yourself, like you know exactly what you need to do, but you just can't make yourself do it, my guest here today is going to explain why your biology is working against you, and more importantly, how to fix it. She is a world-renowned elite neuroencoding specialist and certified brain health coach, trained by the legendary Dr. Daniel Amen. She is a #1 best-selling author, and she spent over 20 years helping leaders across 6 continents rewire their minds for peak performance. She's known globally as Coach D, and she's here to turn us all into brain ninjas. Dominika Staniewicz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
We met recently, and I've gotten to know you a little bit. Your backstory is pretty incredible. I'm actually anxious to hear more about it. So how did you get into this work? And you can start wherever you want to in that journey.
We're going to start when I was about 19. And a tragedy goes in waves, and I had one of my own where my son passed away. And it is important because it changed my brain. From a person concentrated on getting my needs met, I realized that life is fragile. And then I built my first company. I was always a trailblazer, and it was beyond difficult. At that time, everybody believed that the brain is not able to comprehend 2 languages, that if you're going to learn 2 languages too early, then you're going to be just very stupid. That was a common message being put out by the science community. Yet something like called Helen Dorn came into Poland, and I lived at that time in Poland, and they said, no, we're going to start teaching your kids English from 3 months old. The more progressive people jumped on it, but it was a big pushback from the educational part of the world, and it was a big pushback from the scientists. Yet we already knew that kids that are bilingual, when they're really bilingual, they come from homes that are bilingual, and it's working. And those kids were getting better grades, have better grit. And there were so many attributes to it. So I went ahead with it. And for 6 years, I was building, as part of a franchise, a language school called Helen Dorn. And needless to say, we ended up with 6 schools in our territory, over 10,000 kids. It was a success. That got sold. I then went into building another company, which I wish I had the knowledge I have now, or the people around me that I have now. Your environment is the key, knowing who to ask the question. And it was also a trailblazer. We were an HR department for rent. While I was working for Business Center Club, part of the tripartite commission in the Polish government, negotiating labor laws, doing all the big stuff, I was also doing the human stuff and working as the HR for rent. At that time, there wasn't anything like that. Now we have partial support systems and different companies. And it was going great, despite the fact that we parted emotionally and logically, and in any way, shape, or form with my business partner. He bought it from me, but he bought it for almost no money. And I didn't know how to sell my parts. I didn't know how to sell my company. And that's was a realization I had not long ago, where I finally created an environment where I had people to ask questions. And I saw that what I've sold for $10,000 could have been sold for $400,000, $500,000, $700,000. So that was very painful. But then another thing happened. My second part of my life, being in media, working with really phenomenal people, speaking about human connection, labor law, and everything else that comes with it, the government changed. And I received a phone call saying, hey, either you speak nicely about us and you support us, or you can go and you will not have a job. For me, integrity was always the most important part. So I said, you're not paying me. I'm an outside expert. As soon as you do something I agree with, I'll be happy to support you. It wasn't more than 3 weeks. I received phone call from every news station, every journalist I've ever worked with. Dominika, you're on the list. We can't work with you.
Wow.
Now, that was a compliment. You don't get rid of people whose voice is not meaningful. On the other hand, I had nothing. I couldn't run my company. I didn't know if that list was circulating outside of media. My friends who had big companies, they go, you're HR, we can hire you, we can wait it out. I'm like, I can't. I don't know where that list is. Maybe it's only media. But if it's not, I'm HR. I know, and every HR person will tell you this. Find me a person, I'll find you a fault. If they're coming after me, I just knew that part was gone. They might take you down with me. I would not forgive myself that you've built a company for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And because of me, you can lose it. So
Right.
I took my suitcase, my education, my knowledge, and my US citizenship and flew back to the US. And I thought it's going to be walk in the park. And the questions showed during interviews going, do you know how to use LinkedIn? No, you didn't work in America. That's not the same. People are the same. No, we do things differently. So my first job, despite 3 degrees, working with the president, US, European Union, and doing all the high-end things in California, was separating hangers at a warehouse with convicts.
Oh, wow. So you literally had everything taken from you. It was either stay there and comply or move and try to build something new. You said you already had citizenship in the US?
Yes, I was raised in America. Maybe that's why my accent is slight.
Yeah.
We're during the Cold War, and then after Cold War, there were movements in Poland where there were tanks. My parents left, then they came back to Poland, and they went back to US again, and we had the refugee status, and I went to junior high school and high school here.
Okay. And what was the timeline from when your son passed to getting into these other endeavors? And was that over in Poland or was that here?
So all the endeavors, what I told you is the whole
Yeah.
Polish history. So the endeavor started about 3 years later. I needed to put myself together, which wasn't easy because at that time we didn't have coaching, we didn't have really neuroscience, nor did we have, I didn't run into great therapists. Don't get me wrong, some therapists are amazing. I just didn't run into any great ones.
Did you start with, I feel like a lot of coaches and really successful people and influencers and stuff like that that are in the leadership space, a lot of times they entered that space being a student first. I'm guessing, were you in search for meaning like for yourself and then that developed into something, or did you always have the intention that you wanted to build that type of business?
So I was always using coaching techniques in my work as a
Yeah.
manager. But my first coach, it was a moment where I went through therapists and psychologists and nothing worked and I was just miserable. It wasn't a sense for meaning. I just couldn't get over the events of my life. And I just so knew inside that there has to be more. And I just was spinning in circles. It was not working. So there was this, like, they were talking, it's a coach. I'm like, what's a coach? And she goes, let me talk to you. And what was brilliant about her is she asked me questions, not caring what happened in the past. It was, where are we now and where can we go? And I am built for solutions. I love finding options.
Right.
And those questions allowed me to see outside of that. And she was the reason why I got out of depression. She was the reason why I was able to take the endeavors of running a company and all of those things, because she opened my eyes to a lot of things I already knew,
Yeah.
but I couldn't dig from under the pain and grief and rumination in my head. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't become a coach because of this. I was working with C-level executives, coaching them on new jobs, but that was just not fulfilling. Great money, just not fulfilling. And then I stopped for many years. I stopped coaching. I was doing the regular type of a job, managing, working. But I was also epileptic and I'm also dyslexic.
Oh, wow.
I would make it now a nice snarky comment, but I'm going to skip that. Lately, we've been talking about people with dyslexia, how unintelligent we are. 3 degrees later, we're
Yeah.
good. So all of that being epileptic, remember on media, people with epilepsy usually having a seizure when they're drug addicts, and then you see a seizure, grand mal seizure. So I was associated with drug addicts. And I couldn't get out of the seizing, especially that my seizures were stress related, lack of sleep and lack of food, all three things. And then I run into Dr. Amen in America. And I fell in love because there was science, and I love science that's usable.
Right.
And besides giving me the base and understanding of my brain, he gave me techniques and options and simple things that didn't cost a fortune. So I started implementing and changing my life by choice because I hated the seizures because I would forget 3 days of my life. They were gone. I would not recognize faces of people I loved for few 20 minutes. And it was just taxing. It was difficult. Plus, risk of losing a driver's license, risk of losing a lot of other things. I'm like, okay, I'm done pretending I don't have epilepsy. Let's just name things as they are, not better, not worse. And let's face it. And what can I do about it now? And I started implementing brain health and neuroscience practices. I've been 10 years without a grand mal seizure.
That's
My
crazy.
EEG is normal after 40 years of being fully blown epileptic. And on top of this, my medication from 2,000 units is down to 250 units. And I'm fine. I'm beyond fine.
And it's all from what you learned with him and what you applied after that.
Him and Joseph McClendon, those two men combined, plus Tony Robbins and a lot of other work. I think it's like a cascade of work. It's not that one fixes it all. And it was amazing, but I wasn't ready to hear them. And that's the key. Sometimes you hear things over and over, the same, different people say the same thing, but at one point it just clicks. I made that split-second decision. I am not living like this anymore. And that's when everything started cascading, all the knowledge started coming back and put into practice. And that's how I got on the healthy side. I just had all my tests done a week ago. I'm like a walking health example, no biohacking.
I think part of it is our brains are not ready to accept information sometimes. So like when you hear about that happening, you're working with Joseph and you hear about somebody that, you know, their cancer went away or this or that. It's not that you don't believe it. It's just it's hard to believe that could happen for you if you've been living with seizures for decades. And I think it's a weird thing for the brain to overcome.
I don't think it's that. I think it's because when you have a disability, and epilepsy is a disability or inability to do everything, however you want to put it, you create that as your identity.
I thought that's where you're going to go. So you're wrapped into it, even if it's negative. Yeah.
And it's like with people who are miserable and they are the negative Nancy's and they keep complaining how their life is bad.
Right.
It's not that they want to be there, but they've learned that this is the only way they can get love and attention. They have no healthy habits of getting that love and attention. And if I'm going to be happy, who's going to call me to check on me? If I'm going to be happy, who's going to come and hug me? If I'm going to be happy, who's going to care about me? Because the only way they know how to keep people around them is to be unhappy. And then we have people who have disorders in form of people pleasing. And people pleasing is very actually egotistical because it turns out from neuroscience that pain, we help people not because we want to be nice. It turns out that your brain feels other pain like your own, and you want to relieve your own pain. So because you don't want to suffer, you help others because then your brain does not receive that signal. It's not because you want them to be happy.
I'm displacing my own pain by engaging with theirs, basically. Yeah.
So
Or
what
avoiding
happens
it.
is we have mirror neurons. One of their function is to feel the environment. So whatever somebody feels, you feel at some level in your brain in the pain center. And you help them to stop seeing this because they are causing you pain, although it's their pain.
I got you. So it's like a selfish act. I don't like
Yes,
this and
absolutely.
I'm gonna. So what happens? What's the trajectory of your first job is in the plant with the convicts and sorting the clothes hangers. And what's the timeline from then to when you are taking a deep dive into all this stuff?
So the deep dive starts about 2 years later.
Okay.
And I'm crawling out of that, separating hangers and doing odd jobs and crying every night.
Yeah.
And I get a job at a school district, because one of my degrees is in foreign language education, ESL. They see that I have the education, they see me teach, but they don't want to give me a full teacher's position, thank goodness. So I'm teacher's aide, but I get full classes that I teach on my own. I have no supervision because of my education. So then I start working for a private language school where I become the academic director because of my education. And because it's an international school, they understand that education everywhere can be transferable. Thank goodness somebody had that understanding. It starts to go from there. I go into bigger companies. I work as an HR manager, recruiting manager. All of those positions were climbing, but at the same time, I'm looking for opportunities to learn, to grow. Tony Robbins comes along the way. Events come along the way. Joseph comes along the way. All of those things happen to bring me where I decide, okay, I'm not working for anybody else anymore. I am going to do this on my own. And blessing in disguise, my position gets eliminated. And I'm like, maybe it's a sign. So let me use the money that is being offered to me to work on developing my business. And that's where it started again, right? This is my third or fourth business. And that's when Your Brain Coach D came alive. And boy, did I learn that if you're not set with friends from childhood in the environment that you grew up with, it is much harder to build a business when you have no connections. That was a huge learning. We're doing well, and it took much more work than it would take in a place where you know people and you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I need your help.
How many years has it been since you started the business that you have now?
So Your Brain Coach showed up 5 years ago, and a full-time is 3 years.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit, there's some things that you really, there are themes of your work and I'd like to talk about them. So talk to me a little bit about the myth of willpower.
So willpower is connected to motivation in the popular psychology. Willpower is so destructive for your brain if it's a permanent thing. So gray matter, which is part of your brain, is built through doing things that we don't feel like doing. But when your whole life is connected to doing things that you don't like doing, then you deplete something called a decision reserve. It's an energy space in your brain where there's only a certain amount of decisions you have to make. If you have to make yourself do every time everything that you don't like, that decision reserve, that ability to make decisions depletes. And by the end of the day, you're sitting, I don't know if I want coffee or tea. And there's nothing wrong with you. You just exhausted that reserve. Willpower, what people understand as motivation, is fleeting. It's a temporary hit of hormones, and it's not something that lasts. One of the goals of brain coaching and working with people is to change you and your neural pathways to the point where it becomes automatic and no willpower is needed. It becomes you. And when it becomes you, there's no willpower needed. Now, granted, motivation is exciting. It feels good. You want to go and you want to do things, and then you go back to old patterns. Because emotion on its own, without a neural pathway and emotionally significant event, which is necessary for connections in the brain to form, and the logic is also necessary to support that, and then practice is not going to stay. So when people are looking for motivation, they're looking for a temporary burst of energy.
Right.
What we want you to do is to create a neural pathway and a behavior that is not requiring any motivation anymore because it is you. It's like you don't need a motivation anymore to brush your teeth, do you? There's no going, I got to brush my teeth. You don't even think about it. When you change enough that your behaviors that you desire become part of your personality, there's no motivation needed on a daily basis, which means your brain can actually go on the autopilot, but designed by you.
Because you're not having to consciously make the decisions because you're being pulled towards your identity in that area is maybe pulling you towards it, right? So in other words, somebody, just tell me if I have it right. A lot of people have trouble working out on a consistent basis. But if someone gets to the point where they're like, this is who I am and I love who I am and it makes me strong and vibrant and whatever they associate that to, there is emotion tied to it. It is part of their identity.
This
Is
is,
it
let's
like
say,
that?
level 3.
Yeah.
Level 10 would be like brushing your teeth. You just go work out because you just go. There's literally there's no emotion tying. I brush my teeth because it's good for my
It's fun.
mouth. You just do. You go and eat. You just do. And that is the challenge. And those changes need to be done in a micro version. So your brain, and I'm going to keep repeating this, is not designed for revolution. Your brain is designed for evolution.
Right.
Drastic change only works if it's a highly significant emotional event and your life has collapsed, trauma happened, or something extremely powerfully joyful happened. Other than that, there is no drastic change in your life. Everything is a baby step.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages. You know, most leaders don't build organizations, they build cages, and you can't grow if everything depends on you. Whether you're a founder scaling your company or a corporate leader running a high-performance team, growth starts with people. And that's why the first pillar at the Leaders Lab is building the right team. Before you scale, before you sell, before any big initiative, you need the right leaders around you. Our team has placed over 1,000 executives into Fortune 500 and fast-growing startups and supported over 75 acquisitions along the way, helping leaders create over $1 billion in enterprise value. At the Leaders Lab, we help you hire top talent, scale with confidence, and build a business or team that can thrive without you. Take the free Scale Up scorecard at theleaderslab.co or email me directly, ken@theleaderslab.co, to find out how ready your organization really is for growth. And now, back to the playbook.
Change is not in big moments most of the time. Change is in the daily little tiny things.
So when you're working with people, and I know it's a process, but where do you go to help develop these habits? Is it in their identity or is it just in the baby steps that are going to happen over time?
I think it's everything together. But before I go to any change, we look at your blood work. Because if you don't have enough ferritin, if you don't have enough iron, magnesium, D3, and a few other things, you are not delivering the ability for your brain to change permanently. These are building blocks of your brain. So first, we need to get you to the point where your brain has the building blocks to make change.
Right.
If you're not sleeping enough, do you know that actually neuroplasticity doesn't happen in the moment? It happens when you sleep. So if you're sleeping 4 hours a day, and to be very clear, that people who can sleep 4 hours a day in the population and are healthy, that's maybe 0.001%. Everybody else is lying to themselves, or they have some type of a disorder. Every psychiatric disorder is connected to lack of sleep. The first thing you need to do is take care of your sleep. Every athlete goes to bed early because they know how sleep is important. That's the regeneration. And there's a phenomenal study from 1987, I believe, on soldiers. They took sharpshooters, snipers, and they had them sleep 8 hours, shoot to the target, 97% accuracy. They went to 7 hours, the accuracy went to 75%. But when they went to 5, 6, and then 4, at 4 hours, it was 25% of people who trained for this every day. That's how crucial your sleep is. Would you like to manage your life on 25% accuracy of decisions?
I was in the military during that time, so that makes a lot of sense. We've gone to some ranges and done some qualifications like hungover on like low sleep. And yeah, it was not good. And that is something, it's an interesting study for the kind of work that you do because it is so precise. It's like you either hit the target or you didn't. It's not just how it manifests itself for leaders is bad decisions, bad hiring choices. So very cool. Tell me about neuro-feminine leadership. What is that?
Oh, I love this. So, yes, scientists are debating, but there's so much science out there showing that our brains are built different, not in parts, but in sizes and the numbers of connections. And with all the love for men, it's not about men being bad, but throughout the ages, history, men created leadership, men created books, men created styles of leadership, men create a lot of things because of social economic norms for whatever reason. There were some countries and areas where women were the ones creating that, but that didn't really survive. We connected leadership with power and we connected power with strength. So throughout the ages, this was working different ways. But the truth is that women function differently. And none of the leadership styles have been designed by women for women. I have been talking to many amazing female leaders. And those who live in the masculine world, they often don't go for CEO positions, not because they cannot, but they go, if I have to do what he does, I don't want to live like this. It's out of my integrity. And we have found that KPIs might not be the best way, that the way we talk, the way we connect, the fact that we have anterior cingulate gyrus, which is the pattern radar that spots connections and trends, that we have actual structures for intuition. We've been told it's a, what if we bring all of those brain structures, enhance them, and learn how to use them in a way to serve our leadership? There are fantastic studies with SP Global Index and SP 500 where they showed that when women at the same time were appointed to CFOs and CEOs, they brought 25% more income to the company than their male counterparts, and the retention rate grew, and the number of people leaving the company dropped. And there are plenty of studies, but what's interesting, they're done all over the world. The results are the same, but they're never presented in one go. So what I do, I pull them, and also, just to be very fair, our brains are prone to anxiety. Our brains are prone to depression. So we need to know how to prevent that from happening. And we need to now, as women, create a leadership style that feels right for us, that can be added, not instead of, but added to the plethora of beautiful leadership styles that we have. When they did a study, Harvard Business Review 2011, I believe, they had different leadership styles. Men exceeded in autocratic and dictatorship leadership styles. Women exceeded in collaborative work. And don't get me wrong, in a war zone, there is no time for collaborative. This is where that style should be put aside. But we're most of the time not in war situations.
Right.
And there's another study from Brazil coming where a certain province had 95% of women running the cities. Within 4 years, poverty dropped below any known number. People were having jobs, increase of jobs, and the quality of life rose by 40 points in the index. Now, I'm not saying women are better than men, but I'm saying that sometimes these styles that have not been discovered yet and named and processed could be based on our ways that our brain is predisposed. And it can be a benefit to men and to women if we add a few more things to this beautiful styles of leadership that we already have. Probably that wouldn't be a great style for a factory where you're a production worker. KPIs and numbers and time, that's key there. I've met a few amazing women in Europe. One of them, my brain still doesn't comprehend that, but it's working. So I told myself maybe it's because she's a one-woman show. So she does color matching, and she has a waiting list of 4,000 clients at any given time. And I was like, what do you mean? So you're hiring people, you're getting, she goes, no, I'm not. I'm like, you're not? Yeah, see, I work 4 days a week and I work 6 hours a day. And she lives very comfortably, beyond comfortable. And I'm like, so how does that work? Don't you lose clients? She goes, those that don't need my services, they'll go. And those who really want me, they'll stay. The confidence of knowing that those who need her will be there. So what she does, she pulls out of a group of names for each month. And it could be a person that's been there 4 years and less. It could be a person that's been there for a week. And then she sends them emails. And people who cannot come or they dropped out, they then let her know. If she doesn't get a confirmation, she posts it on Facebook. These slots are ready to go. You can fill them in, whoever is first. And she's been running her business like this for the last 6 years. It's working. Another woman has orders she takes in and she makes creams according when she can get the best, in her opinion, ingredients. So she has 6 different creams. Women put in orders 6, 7. And my friend who uses her services, she goes, I sometimes order 6, 7 creams at one time because I don't know when is the next
Scarcity,
time.
yeah.
But it's manufacturing. So the different approach is also working. And that woman does hire people to make them, but she sources only in certain times. She doesn't want things laying down. She doesn't want them stored. She has a whole vision. And she also has a waiting list forever and hundreds and thousands of creams being ordered. And women are just waiting because they value the quality and they know that it's going to come when the best product is ready.
Feminine versus masculine, like leadership traits, which I agree with. And it's not blanket statements. It's not all women do this and all men do this. General terms for what we're talking about today. And I agree that most companies, especially the larger companies that have been around for a while, agree with everything that you're saying. And I think the ones that are doing well and the leaders that are doing well is, I think it's about radical self-awareness. So for example, if I'm a female leader in maybe what has traditionally been a male-dominated industry or company, and let's say I'm wired more for empathy, support, collaboration, and I know that in the important meetings in this room, it's about drive and decision making and maybe a little bit of competitiveness. I don't want to change my whole leadership style, but I need to know how to lean into that part of my personality when it's appropriate. And I think same with men that are going to do well in years to come, where it's, I know you can't just be the person banging your fist on the desk, A, B, and C player, let the C players go, and like my way or the highway. That's not really working with people either. And so those leaders have to lean into this feminine side. But I agree with you that structurally, for the most part, bigger businesses, smaller companies could do what they want. Female-led company is going to have a female-led leadership structure. But for the larger companies, I agree that the structure sometimes is that old school structure. So even if you're like a progressive leader within it, it's like the leaders can change, but the structure needs to change as well. And that's only going to happen by enlightened people coming up through the food chain and taking over those C roles.
That's one thing. And another thing is, remember, women have been faced with a belief that they even believe. And that was the most, I think, for me, sad demonstration of that when they did an experiment of moms of boys and girls. And the boys were horsing around, getting the C, B grades, doing just fine, as kids should. And the girls were excelling. They were running clubs, presidents, straight A's, honor students, everything. And when those moms were asked, who do you think is more likely to succeed? 80% of moms said the boy.
Right.
Despite the evidence seeing something totally different.
Right.
And sometimes that belief carries on. It shows up in interviews and shows up in every way. And neuroplasticity, which we all talk about, is a great thing, but it works both ways. Neuroplasticity can take your feminine advantage away.
Right.
It can take those skills away.
Right.
It's not about, again, better or worse. It's different. And if we have some type of superpower, men have their own superpowers in their brain, then our goal is to create an environment that women will be able to explore that and work on it so we'll become her guiding star in a lot of situations. Intuition that we have, and a lot of men talk about intuition, they go, I don't know how she knew. It's our brain structures that are a little bit better developed, and men can develop them too with specific exercises. And we all have it. We walk into a room and there's a heavy feeling. Something happened. You have no clue what happened, but something happened. That's your intuition. That's your mirror neurons, gut feeling, and your brain processing information that you cannot name. Now, if you are in high stress, if you are in erratic situation or in trauma bonding some type, or just basically overworked, that radar is not working. You should not listen to your intuition, because you will see things that are taken out of context by your brain, and you will enhance that. So there's so much in neuroscience that we need to put into practice to train, to be able to align what our brain can do, grow those parts. Like white matter, women have more connections in white matter. So it's like a super highway of the brain connecting two sides of the hemispheres. So what it means is that we're able to pull from both sides of the brain much quicker and connect information. That's part of your intuition. Because we have more of them, there's a higher chance of us connecting information much quicker and noticing things.
I love that. And I think on the neuroplasticity side, first time I've ever said that, but I know what it means. And it's this idea, I think, of being able to lean in somewhere without losing your sense of self and who you are. You know what I mean?
First,
And I
you need to
think,
know who you are. Most
right,
people have no clue who they are.
exactly. So I think it's like understanding who you are, the value that you bring, and then going, yeah, but I can also be the person that if there's a fire in the theater, I can direct everyone to the exits, even though my normal style isn't command. But if I live there, then I change who I am fundamentally. You know what I mean?
That's one thing. And
Yeah.
another thing is not everybody will have the ability to function well under stress. So I function fantastically under stress, but then I have about a week and a half cool off period where I get sick, I cry, I have all kinds of things happening to me. And we came to a white squall, which is this huge storm where this black wall comes and wind and basically was flipping. I was there with my kids and my past partner on that boat. I have no problem making split-second decisions, doing everything. But when the stress came over and it was gone, it was now peaceful and calm, I fell apart for 2 days.
Sure.
So there is always a trade-off. And I know me, I can put myself and save the day, but I also know that there will be a trade-off. So when I plan my life, I encompass that. And most men forget that they have the trade-off too. They pretend everything is okay. And that's one of the reasons you gentlemen die quicker, because you don't allow yourself to decompress and go back into your normal state. Your brain requires that.
I'm just going to plow through rather than feel what that emotion is. I think that makes sense though, because it's like you do what you have to do in the moment, but then there are the emotional and psychological repercussions of that, or the
Absolutely.
delayed reaction of that. Like you're going to feel it with time. So tell me, as we're starting to wrap up here, what do you have going on now? I know you've got some cool programs going on. I know you have some big speaking events happening, but tell me how people can work with you.
You can always find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn under Your Brain Coach D. On LinkedIn, you can find me under my name, Dominika Staniewicz. I have 2 newsletters over there, one in Polish, one in English, in neuroscience, leadership, and practical tools. And right now, I am doing an event for women. It's for feminine leadership. It's called Business Her Way, done for women by women, with a lot of insights that we just talked about, but also different perspectives, like how movement influences the development of your brain. Feminine sales can be adapted to what you're doing. What is relationship selling? Because we're better at that than at make 50 phone calls a day. All of those tools will be brought to you, including identity work. All of that in business and marketing is going to be on the 29th of May in League City, in a beautiful place overlooking the water, done by One for One, Business Her Way. So I highly recommend you guys coming. And of course, you can find me at Your Brain Coach or my first and last name. I'm always open to chat and have a conversation.
Nice. Well, it was so good getting to connect with you again and learn more about your amazing journey. Thanks so much for being here on the Playbook.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode of The Playbook by the Leaders Lab. Thanks for spending some time with us. We'd love it if you would subscribe, share the show, and leave a quick rating and review. Your feedback helps us grow and it helps more leaders and founders join the conversation. If you'd like to talk more about hiring, scaling, or selling your business, please email me, ken@theleaderslab.co, or connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll be back soon with more strategies you can put to work today. I'm Ken Eslick with Annika Kwacha. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week in the Playbooks.